Hi Virgo, welcome to your December reading. The sun is setting on another glorious November day. And we're going to take an intuitive look, getting back to when the channel first started, at what your month looks like. And we'll go over the astrology once we have the cards in front of us and we can look at them together. You can take notes, and then I'll tell you about the important transits. For now, just take a deep breath, and much like the personal readings, let yourself relax. And let's see what comes up. Fairness is on your mind, but it may have an effect that you aren't expecting. You're preoccupied with people being fair to you, with you, while others may be finding things out that make them feel as if you have been unfair to them. Perhaps that you have not been completely honest with them. Things can move quickly towards falling out of love if someone feels that you are not genuine in your feelings for them. And it's hard for you because I think you also mourn a time when your feelings were genuine for them. So as much as you may be painted at this time as a villain, you're just as hurt that you don't feel the same way. So it's understandable how they're feeling. I think behind it was an impulse to keep things at a status quo, which is obviously a huge motivation for you as a person, to keep this harmony, regardless of if you actually fit into the photo of that harmony. Didn't matter as long as the harmony itself existed. And this is one of the ways in which, the selflessness of a Virgo can work against them. Selflessness when healing others and helping others is such a noble attribute. But selflessness to the point of disappearing so you can create or maintain the illusion of something or the appearance of something, that is selflessness that is destructive and leaves very little room for the self. One has to become invisible in many aspects to fit into an image that does not resonate with them. It's not just about pretending in this one world. You begin to lose parts of yourself that, are vital to who you are, and they define what you want and the goals you pursue and the things you desire. It all swirls around who you are. And when you have to diminish and minimize yourself more and more to continue to fit into whatever this image or picture is, you begin to lose the thing that makes you who you are. And that, of course, is going to affect what you want and what you strive for. So, this shift that you're feeling in December has to do with people who need to know what the truth is and what your truth is and what's really going on, and they want to deal with your authentic self. And that's for some of you, terrifying, because you're your identity is based around who you are to them. You put so much into who you are to them, which is perhaps how you got in this mess in the first place, that now in December, when you're confronted with who you really are and what you really want, it's very jarring because you've almost lost yourself in the role. It makes me think of Donnie Brasco. There's that point in Donnie Brasco where everyone begins to wonder, has he infiltrated and been undercover so long that has he talked and walked that life so much that he has become that and he doesn't know it himself? Perhaps you have diminished and minimized yourself to the point where you no longer know what you really want. And I just would like to point out that there is a gorgeous orange sunset happening in the background here. But it's happening that way, so you're only seeing the reflection of it. You can't really make it out over here. And there is a light rain falling at the same time, but it is so light that it's creating this sort of necklace of jewels on all the windows. And the house consists of all windows. So it is aesthetically, incredibly pleasing. Now, one of the things that happens as you begin to get back to yourself and feel more like, wait till you see these cards, my goodness. As you get back to yourself and you feel more like yourself and you begin to have permission to remember what you used to like and who you are and who you used to be, don't be upset that process is catalyzed or is started by someone learning the truth about how you don't feel about them. Don't get stuck there and say, oh, this is a tragedy that such and such thing fell apart. Move forward, and what you'll see is that there is so much waiting for you. There is first of all, there is a lot of money to be made, and it has to do with who you really are and what you've perhaps been hiding, not just to fit into that picture even, but hiding just so you didn't have to engage too much in something that you really were just going along with. It's hard to share your creative true self in a situation where you're just doing it out of obligation. Even if you are inspired, you don't want to share those ideas in an uninspired connection because you don't want it to take away from that thing. So you start to connect with that inspired part of you again, and that's the money-making part of you. So that's great. And of course, that brings increased opportunity and increased wealth. But it also, it creates this magician energy within you. You want to learn things that other people don't know. You want to learn things that gives you the edge. You want to learn things about what goes on behind the scenes and the mechanisms of things. And this is the perfect time to get into that, because I think you can really add to your already extremely lucky ability to make enormous amounts of money when you're really interested in something, as can anyone. But because you go after things with such a perfectionist drive, it's even more pronounced for you. Now let's talk about love and Geminis and stable futures that you didn't think were possible. You may at this time run into somebody who has either heavy Gemini placements or is just kind of effusively loving and magnanimous and seems to understand you and seems to be able to speak your language without, you can look at them and they know what you're thinking and what you want and what you're saying. This is a time where you can meet someone like this, or you can deepen a connection with someone like this. You can go back to a connection like this. You can create a connection really out of thin air at this time like this, and it can surprisingly be very long term. So as tumultuous as a time as it may seem, it's actually a very lucky time for you, because you get to move forward in such a big way. So don't be afraid of how that change begins, because it may begin with a little bit of embarrassment, or some sort of ending, or having to tell the whole truth about how attracted you are to someone, how committed you really are or want to be, how long term do you see things, how you have to be really honest in December about a few things that are very uncomfortable, you don't want to be honest about. You are notorious for being very vague about your intentions, and December is one of those months that really holds your feet to the fire. So it is very important that you not get stuck there, not get overwhelmed with the anxiety that this is happening. People are demanding answers, people are getting answers, people are finding things out that I don't want them to know. Either I'm saying it myself or it's just happening in other ways. I feel out of control. You want to move past that to, like I said, the freedom and getting back to yourself and being able to, after a long time, feel what it feels like to just be yourself and not have to fit into what you thought was an image you had to maintain. And yes, it's a scary process, and yes, all change is scary, especially when it has to do with family and loved ones and institutions and structures that you rely upon to create stability and a certain nurturing vibe within your home, within your family, within your life. So of course it is disruptive and it can be very tumultuous, but at the same time, the people that you're dealing with that want these truths and receive these truths and want these answers, they also have the right to know what's really going on. They also have the right to pursue happy lives and to have people around them that want them the way they want to be wanted in the way that they want. And we shouldn't begrudge them that, because we are searching for a sense of security that we should be searching for within ourselves and cultivating there. And, thus the quietest revolution. Okay, that was a lot. Love you. Hi, Virgo. Welcome to the second part of your reading. So, I don't think I made this very clear upon watching it again. And this is why I really appreciate doing it in 2 steps, because it gives me time. I appreciate the intuitive perspective because it is right on, but I think the second part is important because it brings emphasis to what was uncovered by intuition but is backed up by astrology. And you know yourself. So when things resonate with you because you know how you are, that's the most powerful moment, That's really the goal, right? So that first card, 8 of Wands, is the most important in the whole reading because it belies a level of speed that is way too fast. In fact, it's so quick that it turns you around a little bit, and whatever you have going on up until now has been maintained by careful upkeep. You understand? So when you start moving too fast, of course upkeep is going to suffer a little bit. And that's when the cracks start to show. That's when it becomes a bit more clear that there are some things that you are hanging on to, not because you want them, not because they make you happy, but because they look a certain way. Now it's funny because once a year, you're confronted with this public persona versus private need. And once a year, you're confronted with this sped up, post-Mercury retrograde usually, self-destructive period of moving too fast and making reckless mistakes, especially when it comes to sex. It just so happens that both of these things are now happening, those once-a-year cycles, at the same time.
So that's fun. One of the ways that you cope with things spiraling is that you lean into your romantic connections, or you lean into that public persona. Basically, you back up into a safe corner where you feel you can maintain. But that's the thing about December, it's not allowing you to do that. It wants honesty, but only because it wants accountability and responsibility. It's not a moral thing. You don't need to own up to who you are or what you like or what you don't like because it makes you a good or a bad person. You need to do so because all of those choices, each one respectively, comes with a set of responsibilities that then become yours once you choose. See, the genius thing that you guys have figured out is that you just don't choose. If you just don't choose, the responsibility's not yours. What does he say in that song, Post Malone, in that Circle song? That he doesn't want to make the first move because he doesn't want to get the blame. He wants to come back around, but he doesn't want to get the blame if it goes wrong again. So he's just waiting for her to make the first move. It's that type of shit. But because of how the planets are moving, and because of the season that we happen to be in, responsibility, owning up to what you are obligated to do is predicated on owning up to what it is that you want and what responsibilities you are willing to take on. Right? Isn't that what you want means? I think you know that. Excuse me, I'm gonna drink something. So, one of the ways this manifests is if you're not genuinely into a project. Let's say you had a certain vision or a dream for a project or a career. If you're not into it anymore, it's very obvious now. If you're in a romantic connection that, at least on your end, has fizzled, no matter what amount of maintenance you try to do in that situation, it's going to be really obvious. There is a lot of good luck, a lot of drive, a lot of love, attention, and money on the table. And then there's this way too quick beginning and this very regretful ending that is preceded by this need to hide and create subterfuge. So you see my apprehension here. Now, if those first three cards weren't there and the last two weren't there, well, that's just fantastic. That's a completely different reading. But that's not our reading. So what this means is, hey, there's a lot of incredible stuff that would like to find you because you have done the work, you have been disciplined, you have been diligent. Your heart has been in the right place. And so many of the markers you called in, they're coming in. But there's a certain speed at which you have to land this plane. And if you come in too fast, you're gonna fly right over all this stuff. And you're gonna miss it. So what controls the speed of that plane? How do you control it? What is it? What is that? What is that Eight of Wands? What's going on? Why are you slingshotting out of this year? Well, part of it is I think you're just done with 2021. There's like a real destructive streak to you guys when you're fed up. I think you're fed up with the year. I think you're fed up with the way the world is handling things. I think you're fed up with pretty much everything. But you don't have to be an astrologer to know that. It's just the lack of organization everywhere you look. It must be annoying as hell for a Virgo. I think you're reacting to, obviously, the transits, the coming out of Mercury retrograde, finally being out of its shadow, being so heavily ruled by Mercury, it can be so much of a damper on your mental acuity, right? And then on top of that, there's almost a sense of escapism to your self-destruction. It's like a fantasy thing for you guys. It's a place you escape into when the problem is insurmountable. It's just above you. You can't do anything about it. That's when you tend to fall into that kind of Four of Pentacles, Four of Cups, you know, addictive, by turns addictive and regretful place. And usually the only thing that can bring you out of that is having your hope renewed, feeling like you do have a say in what you do and say can make a difference and things can get better. But of course, you know, and of course they can. Just because and this is something that I personally tell Virgos all the time in my life, just because you have lost your patience doesn't mean that things have gone to shit. Please don't be that presumptuous. As soon as a Virgo loses their patience, the world ends. No. I know y'all think you're really patient, but for some things, you have no patience at all. Your patience is worn thin, but I assure you, the game is far from over. The end is nowhere near, nowhere in sight. You lost your cool. You got a little, you know, discombobulated. I get it. Things are a little more chaotic than they should be. It's not fun to have people find out secrets, right? It's not fun to go through a Venus retrograde in an earth sign. It sucks. But this is not the way to handle it. There are a lot of productive ways to get where you want to go, which is to take advantage of all these opportunities, as the Hermit card there is showing you. You have worked for all of this. You have earned all of this. This is all yours. But you got to watch that approach. No, things are not as bad as you think they are. Your logical mind has done all the computations and come up with a really bad number. And maybe it's no coincidence then that you're cozying up there to that Gemini energy. Find you a Gemini energy in your life, or just watch a bunch more of my videos, because we're very good at reminding people, especially people who feel that they've come to the end, that things have gone too far. That's when Gemini really shines. It's no fun making people's hearts light, making them laugh and watching them light up when they're already happy. Anyone can do that. It's not hard to make happy people happier. It's not hard to make a smiling person laugh. No, as Geminis, we like a challenge. That's why we gravitate towards the more difficult signs. No, it's not hard to make an Aries laugh, but it's pretty fucking difficult to make a Virgo laugh. And the way we do it is pretty much across the board always the same. You think the sky is falling down, and we laugh because the sky is falling down. And that's kind of funny. See, we're both Mercury ruled. We're looking at the same thing and we see it. We see it before everybody else sees it. Except you see it and you do a bunch of calculations and it's Armageddon every time. We see it and we feel it, the chaos, and we love it and we let it feed us like fuel. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I don't even know if you could. But maybe trust that energy once in a while, that light-hearted, hopeful, innocent energy that says, yeah, the sky's falling down, but it's going to be okay. Virgo says, well, how is it going to be okay? I don't know. But it will. How do you know? I just know. How do you just know? I feel it. Well, what's that? Ten of Pentacles, strength, and the Ace of Pentacles. Not if, but when you exhibit patience and you are polite and controlled in your dealings, an enormous amount of money considers flowing your way, but it wants to know if you're strong enough. Virgos generally are not weak-minded, especially not when they have to survive. But a spoiled Virgo who has everything, most of them still keep their lives somewhat difficult, austere, because they know themselves that if they let it go and they get indulgent, it's going to get bad. That self-imposed austerity, especially among the very wealthy Virgos, it's something to consider. Why? It speaks to knowing your nature and being smart enough to not be offended by the knowledge. There's nothing in and of itself offensive about knowing that you have an indulgent streak. In fact, if you're not insulted by it and your ego doesn't immediately get riled up by that little bit of truth, you can actually do something about it. You can actually eradicate it. But if your ego is fragile and your sense of self is even more delicate, then someone points out that you have a tendency to become indulgent. Well, you're furious. You have 10 million different criticisms of that person that will tear them apart. Some of them may even be true, but none of them will be as true as what they said to you, which is why it made you so uncomfortable. Now there's that approach. Or there's the much simpler, much more intelligent, effective approach. Ah, you might be right. That hit a nerve. I'm gonna have to fix that little bit of code right away. Even the most distasteful person can be a help, because they will guaranteed tell you something that the people who like you will never tell you, and it's probably something you should fix. You see what I'm saying? If you go through the next 4 weeks thinking that way, you never get to the 4 of Cups at the end of this reading. You stay in that magician energy and you can make it whatever you want it to be. And you can set yourself up for the next thing that can be even bigger than this thing. You walk out of it feeling powerful. Like you don't need to fix the world and you don't need to have all the solutions to still feel good enough as a person, to still feel worthy of having an identity and a sense of self. Sometimes I don't think you feel worthy of being unless you're helping and doing for others. It's like that's what defines you or justifies your existence here. I think December wants to give you a little bit of that Sagittarian fire, like, no, bitch, you deserve to be here just because you're amazing. Even if you didn't help us ever again, you still deserve to be here, but please don't take that as an invitation to never help us again, because we really need your help. Love you. The extended is on Vimeo. It's on Patreon. It's an extended link through PayPal. And it's all in the links below, as well as links to these gorgeous rings. This is the world. This is the Empress. Those links are below as well. And on 12/12, in a few days, we're having a live event. Very cool. Question and answer, virtual. There's a link for that below as well. Love you, love you, love you. I'll see you in the extended right now.